Some of the little things that I'm putting in here are difficult to see when you have oh, okay, real quick. That little stroke, those are the ones that I have a lot of fun with. And they're the ones that I leave normally for the end of the painting. Just kind of let the brush dance on the edge there. And you can get some fun movement and shape doing that. But let's see, what was I talking about before? Oh yeah, the little things that you don't show up in photographs. The reason why it's so important to work from life as much as possible. When I put in some of these little light and dark shifts, much of that gets lost just because the camera can't pick up the same contrast that the eye can. It doesn't see as many colors as the eye sees. It doesn't capture as many value shifts as what your eyes and your mind can perceive. So study flowers and landscape and everything else as much as possible from life, so that when you're in the studio using your references and your imagination and your studies, you can recall those little shifts. So those little bits of light and dark like that might not necessarily be apparent in your photograph. You have to use what you know as an artist and what you've studied on location to bring more life to the painting. Remember that in a photograph, often, especially depending on the knowledge and skill of the photographer, the highlights are going to be much brighter and more blown out in a photograph than in reality, and the shadows are not going to have nearly the depth and detail, the real beautiful, subtle variations of value and color temperature and shape as what you would see if you were there on location. Now, of course, when you're on location, we as artists should be squinting down as much as possible so that we can see the shapes to simplify the shapes, so we can see the real shifts in value that way. But even with squinting down, if you pay close attention and ponder on it, study it more than just an initial glimpse. Take the time to really study while you're squinting, and you'll start to see a whole lot of fun material there that might be lost in a quick glance or a casual perusal of the subject matter. And those little shifts come in real handy to make a painting more fun to paint and more fun to look at when it's all finished. Of course, these initial shadow details that I'm putting in right now are a little strong. They're too dark for the leaf, the way that the light would filter through that leaf. Now, sometimes you can get some very strong shadows, much more so than many artists are inclined to put in there. I like contrast, but I also want to be careful that my shadows aren't overly dark for the overall situation in the painting, and that when they are dark, that they're not a dead dark. What do I mean by that? Usually if it's a dead dark, it means that the color temperature is not quite appropriate for the light source. If it feels dead, it means that usually it's not a matter of changing the value, it's a matter of changing the temperature. So I'll either make it warmer or cooler. The safest bet is to err on the side of warm, I found with shadows and color temperature. But really, over time, the more that you're outdoors, the more that you're really studying your subject matter and squinting and paying attention to learning about color temperature, trying to determine if you can right then and there see whether it's a cool temperature or a warm temperature. The more that you work at that, the quicker you'll get at determining whether it should be warm, whether you need to warm it up or cool it down. And then even after 30 years, I still have to experiment here and there to get some of it right. If you saw when I was manipulating that paint on the palette, I will blend the color that I want. Try not to overblend it, because I like all the changes in color tone. If I don't overblend the paint. But then once I've blended it to the point that I want, I pull the brush back and scoop it forward through the paint so I can pick up enough paint on the end of my brush that I can lay down what I want in one stroke. If the paint's too thin on the brush, then it's not going to lay down nicely, and I'll have to then end up overworking the stroke, trying to push and get more paint down on the painting. So generally, if I don't pick up enough paint the first time, I don't sit there and try to force the brush with greater pressure so I can get more paint. I'll just come back and grab more paint and then try it all over again. Take the same stroke and try to do that same stroke again until I get it right. Often when there's a stem that comes in and attaches to the branch, or when there's a leaf or something that attaches to the stem of the flower, there'll be a little knob there or something that creates a little bit more structure. So putting a highlight on the top of that will help to change the dynamics of the stem. Gives it more interest. Now it's time for the signature. And one thing I wanted to point out too, on the leaf on the left, when I put that stem in there, Notice I didn't make a real strong shadow or highlight coming down the entire length of that stem. I let some of it blend into the background because the mind will fill it in. It'll complete the shape of that and make it so that people know that it's not cut off in the middle there. And it makes it more interesting to look at.
Thanks for stopping by. Now get out there and paint your own masterpiece. Oh, and before you go, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you're interested in any of my videos, just go to my website at inmanfinearts.com and you can find them all there. Have a great day painting.